My father abandoned me for his new family and blamed me when his daughter stole my car. Now they're begging for her to live with me. But I blocked them all, and they never expected what I did next. I'm 21 years old, studying graphic design at a university like 3 hours from where I grew up, and honestly, I thought I'd already closed this chapter of my life. But a few weeks ago, I got a call that made me realize there are people who are never going to change. And I guess I need to tell you guys this story because I'm still processing everything. The thing is, my parents got divorced when I was like 8 years old. And at first, it wasn't that terrible. You know, they set up shared custody, and I'd spend weekends with my mom and weekdays with my dad. Which honestly was fine, because my parents got along pretty badly at the end of the marriage, and it was better this way. I remember my dad promised me he'd always be there for me, that nothing would change between us. And I believed him because he was my dad, you know? He was the person I trusted most in the world at that time. But then, literally 3 months after the divorce, my dad tells me he met someone and wanted me to meet her. Diana showed up with her daughter Ashley, who was my age, and my dad was all excited talking about how we were going to be a new family, how Ashley and I were going to be like sisters. I was 8 years old and they were basically telling me to accept these random people into my life just like that, but I tried to be cool about it because I thought, well, maybe this will make my dad happy and things will be okay. Spoiler alert, things were not okay. Not at all. At first, everything seemed normal, like Diana was nice to me and Ashley and I played together sometimes, but then my dad and Diana got married when I was 9, and that's when everything really started to change. The first thing I noticed was on my 10th birthday. My dad literally forgot my birthday. Completely. He didn't even congratulate me in the morning or anything. And when I told him around 5 p.m., "Hey Dad, it's my birthday," he just said, "Oh, yeah. Happy birthday, honey. Sorry, I've been really busy." And that was it. No cake, no present, nothing. But like 2 months later, it was Ashley's birthday, and my dad threw her this massive party. Like he rented out a party hall, hired a magician, invited her whole class. There was a huge table of presents, and I was standing there thinking, seriously? Is this really happening? When I asked my dad why my birthday wasn't like that, he told me Ashley needed to feel welcome in the family and that I had to be understanding, that it was different for her because she had just moved in. And I was like 10 years old and didn't know how to process that. But I swallowed it because I thought eventually things would balance out. You know? But they never balanced out. Things just got worse over time. Throughout middle school, my dad would drive Ashley to school in the mornings, literally go to her room, tell her to hurry up, wait for her, buy her breakfast on the way, all very nice, while I had to take the bus. When I asked him why he couldn't take me too, he said my school was in the opposite direction and he didn't have time, which technically was true, but also like, you're my dad. Aren't you supposed to make that effort? Ashley also had this habit of taking my stuff without asking, like my clothes, my accessories, my school supplies, whatever. And when I complained to my dad, he'd say I was exaggerating, that sisters share things, that I shouldn't be so selfish. The word selfish became like his favorite word to describe me every time I complained about something. Looking back, I think what hurt the most was that my dad basically stopped seeing me as his daughter and started seeing me as a problem he had to manage while building his perfect new family with Diana and Ashley. I existed in that house, but I didn't matter. You know what I mean? Like I was there physically, but emotionally, I was invisible to him. And the worst part is, my mom didn't help much either. She had her own life and her own problems, and although weekends were better than being with my dad, she didn't. I really understand what I was going through either. Or maybe she did but didn't want to get involved because she didn't want to cause drama with my dad. I don't know. When I turned 16, I decided I was fed up with depending on my dad for anything, so I got a part-time job at a coffee shop near school. I worked like 15 hours a week, sometimes more on weekends, and I started saving every penny I earned. My goal was to buy myself a car because I was literally tired of having to ask my dad for favors or depend on public transportation, and also because I wanted something that was mine, something nobody could take from me or force me to share. I worked for almost a year and a half, and with help from my mom who lent me like $2,000, which I eventually paid back, I managed to buy a used 2015 Honda Civic with like 80,000 miles. It wasn't anything fancy, but it was mine. I paid for it with my own money and my own effort, and honestly, it was one of the things I've been most proud of in my life. Of course, as soon as my dad saw I had a car, he started with the whole thing about how I should share it with Ashley, because we were sisters, and because sharing is important in the family. I told him no. That car was mine and I had paid for it. And he told me I was being selfish again. But honestly, I didn't care what he thought anymore. Ashley also started asking me to lend her the car, like all the time, to go to parties or hang out with her friends. And I always told her no because 1, I didn't trust her one bit, and 2, it was my car, and I didn't have to lend it to anyone. She'd get mad and complain to my dad, and my dad would tell me I was being difficult for no reason. But I stood firm on my decision. All of that came to a breaking point when Ashley was like 17. I was already 18, and she also had her own car, a Mazda 3 that my dad and Diana had bought her for her 17th birthday. By the way, because apparently she deserved to be given a car, while I had to work a year and a KO, have to buy mine. But whatever, that's another story. The point is, Ashley crashed her Mazda. It wasn't anything serious, but the car was in the shop for like 2 weeks. And during those 2 weeks, she wouldn't stop asking me, like begging me, to lend her my car. She told me she'd return it with a full tank, that she was going to drive it very carefully, that she promised, and I kept telling her no because I simply didn't trust her. My dad was super mad at me for not lending it to her. He'd tell me what kind of sister was I, that Ashley really needed it, that I was being cruel, but I didn't give in. And then one day, it was a Friday if I'm not mistaken, I was at school and when I got out of class, I went to the parking lot and my car wasn't there. I literally panicked. I thought it had been stolen. I was about to call the police when I got a text from Ashley that said, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I had an accident." Turns out the idiot had gone into my room while I was sleeping the night before, had grabbed my car keys from my desk, and had taken it without my permission. And not only that, but she crashed it. She crashed it into a pole in a mall parking lot because she was texting while driving. When I got to the scene, my car was all destroyed on the driver's side. Like the door was dented in, the side mirror ripped off, and Ashley was standing there crying saying, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It was an accident." I was furious. More furious than I'd been in my entire life. I yelled at her about how dare she take my car without permission, that I'd told her 1,000 times, no, and she just cried and said she was sorry. I called my dad and when he got there, you know what he did? Instead of scolding Ashley for stealing my car and destroying it, he started yelling at me, saying that none of this would have happened if I had shared the car from the beginning, that I was to blame for being so selfish and stingy, that Ashley just needed transportation, and I had forced her to do this. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I literally couldn't process that my own father was blaming me for the fact that his precious Ashley had stolen my car and wrecked it. I told him, "Dad, she stole my car." I told her no 1,000 times. "How can you blame me for this?" And he just kept saying that I had been selfish all this time and that I needed to learn to think about others. That night, when we got home, I was so angry. I couldn't even cry. I just started packing my stuff. I took out all my clothes, my books, my personal things, put it all in suitcases and boxes, and called my mom to come get me. My dad saw me packing and didn't even try to stop me. He just asked me where I was going and I told him I was going to live with Mom, that I didn't want to be in that house anymore, and he just shrugged and said, "Well, if that's what you want." He didn't even try to convince me to stay. Didn't apologize. Nothing. Diana and Ashley were in the living room watching TV like nothing was. It's happening while I was leaving. And that kind of made it all more real. You know, the fact that nobody really cared that I was leaving. My mom got there like an hour later. We loaded everything in her car. He had to make 2 trips. And I left that house forever. I was 18 years old, about to start my senior year of high school, and I basically left my dad and that whole toxic family behind. Insurance covered most of the damage to my car, thank God, but I still had to pay the deductible, which was like $500, and my car was never the same after that. It always made a weird noise when braking. But well, at least I got it back and could keep using it. Fast forward 5 years. I was already 21. I sometimes get confused with numbers. In my 3rd year of college, living in a small apartment near campus, working part-time at a design agency and basically building my life away from all that drama. In those 5 years, my dad never called me. Not once. Never tried to fix things. Never sent me a message asking how I was. Nothing. I didn't try to contact him either, because honestly, I didn't want to know anything about him, or Ashley, or Diana. I had moved on with my life and was better off without them. My mom would tell me occasionally that my dad asked about me when he talked to her about divorce stuff or whatever, but never enough to make a real effort to contact me. So, like a month ago, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize, but it had the area code from my hometown. So I answered thinking maybe it was something from the university or work. It was Ashley. I hadn't heard from her in literal 5 years, and suddenly she calls me like nothing, with that all-friendly voice saying, "Hi Isabella, how are you? It's been so long." I was like, what the hell? But I played along and told her, fine. What's up? Very dry because obviously I wasn't in the mood to chat with her. She started telling me about her life, that she had finished college. She studied, I don't know, what, something about communications, I think, that she had been living with my dad and Diana, but now wanted to move to a bigger city, get a better job, start over. And I was like, okay, cool. But why are you telling me this? And then she got to the real point of the call. She told me she'd been thinking and would love to move to the city where I was, that she'd seen there were good job opportunities there, and if she could stay with me while she found an apartment and a job, that it wouldn't be for long, just a few months, that she'd help with groceries and cleaning, and it would be like old times when we were kids. I literally couldn't believe what I was hearing. Like, this woman destroys my car. Her dad blames me, doesn't talk to me for 5 years, and now she's asking me to let her live with me for free in my apartment like nothing happened. I told her, Ashley, honestly, I don't think it's a good idea. I have my life organized here, and I don't have space or time for a roommate, right? Now. And she started with the please, Isabella. I'm really asking you. I don't have anyone else, and you know the city. It would only be temporary. I promise. I told her no again, more firmly this time, and she started getting angry, saying, why was I always so difficult? Why couldn't I do this small favor for my sister? That she would do it for me without thinking twice. I told her, look, Ashley, the last time you promised to be careful with my stuff, you stole my car and crashed it, and your dad blamed me for all of that. So no, I'm not going to let you live in my apartment. Find another place or stay where you are. And I hung up. I sat there like shaking because I was so angry, thinking about how she had the nerve to ask me that after everything. Like 2 hours later, my dad called me. He didn't even let me speak, just started yelling at me, saying how was it possible that I'd told Ashley no, that she was just asking for a small favor, that I was being selfish as always, that after everything he'd done for me, what had he done for me? Exactly. That he couldn't believe I was being so cruel to my sister. I tried to explain to him that Ashley isn't my sister, she's my stepsister and we barely have a relationship, that he was never there for me and that I didn't owe him or Ashley anything. But he didn't want to hear anything. He kept going with the same old speech about how I was selfish, that I only thought about myself, that family helps each other, and I literally told him, you know what, Dad, we're done here. Don't call me again. And I hung up. I felt bad after hanging up, not because I thought I'd done something wrong, but because, it's weird to cut contact with your dad in such a definitive way, you know? But I also felt relieved, like I'd finally gotten a weight off my shoulders. I thought everything was over, that I could finally move on with my life without that drama. But life had other plans. Apparently, 2 weeks ago, it was my birthday. I turned 21, and I was celebrating with my friends at my apartment. Nothing fancy, just pizza and some beers, having a good time, when my phone started ringing. It was my dad again. For some reason, I decided to answer. I don't know why. Maybe I thought he was going to congratulate me and that's it. But no. I answered and he said, "Happy birthday, Isabella." And I said thanks, expecting him to hang up right there. But then he started with how he'd been thinking a lot about our last conversation, that he understood I was angry, but that I really needed to reconsider helping Ashley, that she was going through a difficult time, that I had the resources to help her and I was being unnecessarily cruel by refusing. I told him, "Dad, it's my birthday. Did you really call me to give me a sermon about helping Ashley?" And he said he just wanted me to think about what I was doing, about how my actions were affecting the family. I told him that he never thought about how his actions affected me during all those years, that he forgot my birthdays, that he always chose Ashley over me, that he blamed me when she stole and destroyed my car, and that now, after 5 years without talking to me, he came asking for favors like nothing happened. He was quiet for a second and then told me I'd always been very dramatic, that I was exaggerating everything, that he'd done his best as a father, and it wasn't his fault I was so sensitive. That hurt. I'm not going to lie. because he was basically telling me that all my feelings and all the things he'd done to me over the years didn't matter, that it was my fault for feeling that way. I told him I didn't want to talk to him again and hung up. But this time, I started crying. Like I cried like I hadn't in a long time. Because it hurts when your own father invalidates you like that. You know? My friends comforted me and told me I'd done the right thing, that he didn't deserve to be in my life if he was going to treat me like that. And I know they're right, but it still hurts. And then, to top it all off, 3 days ago my mom called me. I thought she was going to be on my side because she'd always seen how my dad treated me. But no. She basically told me I was being very stubborn and very closed off, that Ashley just needed help and I was the only person who could give it to her, that sometimes in life we have to forgive and leave the past behind, that I couldn't keep holding grudges for things that happened years ago. I told her mom. She stole my car like literally 3 years ago. It's not the distant past. And besides, why do I have to be the one who forgives when nobody has apologized to me for anything? My mom told me I'd always been very proud, that I needed to learn to let people into my life, that I was building emotional walls that were going to leave me alone eventually. And I was like, I couldn't believe that even my own mom was turning against me. I told her I couldn't believe she was telling me this, that she, of all people, should understand me. And she just sighed and told me that someday I'd understand, that when I grew up a bit more I'd see things differently. I told her maybe she was right, maybe someday I'd see things differently. But for now my answer was still no. And I hung up. And that was like the straw that broke the camel's back, you know? Because now not only were my dad and Ashley mad at me, but also my mom. And I realized that basically my whole family thought I was the bad guy in the story. That I was the selfish one, the stubborn one, the one who refused to help. And honestly, that made me question a lot of things. But after thinking about it a lot these last few days, I think I finally understood something important. And it's that it doesn't matter what they think of me. I know what I lived through. I know how they treated me for years, and I don't have to justify my decisions to anyone. I've spent the last 5 years building a life where I don't have to deal with that kind of toxicity, where I can be myself without someone telling me I'm selfish for having boundaries, and I'm not going to throw that away just because Ashley needs a place to stay, or because my dad thinks I should be more generous. The truth is, forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, and it definitely doesn't mean letting people who hurt you back into your life like nothing happened. 2 days ago, I blocked my dad's number, Ashley's number, and Diana's number. And although I still haven't blocked my mom, because part of me hopes she'll eventually understand my point of view, I'm prepared to do it if she keeps pressuring me about this. Some of my friends have told me maybe I'm being too drastic, that maybe I should give them a chance to fix things. But I already gave enough chances during all those years when I tried to be the perfect daughter despite everything, and it was never enough for them. This time, I'm choosing myself. I'm choosing my peace of mind and my emotional stability over what my family thinks I should do, and although it's hard and although sometimes I feel guilty, I know it's the right thing for me. I don't know what's going to happen next. If they're going to keep trying to contact me or if eventually they'll give up. But for the first time in a long time, I feel like I have control over my own life, and that's worth more than any toxic family relationship.